today, we're diving into transcripts from a hospital-at-home conference, a specific session reviewing recent research.
So our mission really is to pull out the biggest advancements, the main challenges, and where experts see this whole field heading.
We've got material covering quite a range: training, scaling up cardiology's view, even managing tricky things like electrolytes or dialysis at home, and patient acceptance, too.
And pharmacy's role, can't forget that. It's all based on this conference session where they really tried to synthesize what's new, what research is saying, and importantly, where the evidence gaps still are.
Okay, sounds good. So they structured it around, what, 6 themes?
Yeah, 6 key themes. Made it pretty easy to follow, actually.
All right, let's jump in. First up, training. This seems foundational. You're starting a hospital-at-home program. You've got great hospital clinicians, great home care clinicians, maybe paramedics, but they don't have both skill sets. How do you train them?
That's exactly the problem they started with. It's a known challenge. So they looked at a review article covering research from 2013 to 2022, found 23 papers on educating hospital-at-home teams.
And what did they find? A standard approach?
Not really. More like a bit of everything. Online modules, in-person sessions, job shadowing for nurses that popped up in 6 papers.
Yeah.
Then there was one mentioning using paramedics to show physicians what they could do, one on basic knowledge for primary care docs, another on basic skills for paramedics, and a few just mentioned giving out documents and guidelines to the whole team.
So real patchwork. But did any of it work?
Well, that's the kicker. The review pointed out that all these methods were just described. Nobody had actually published evaluations showing if they were effective or how effective, and no standardized framework.
Right. So lots of effort, but maybe not hitting the mark, or at least we don't know if it is. Did any common training topics emerge?
Oh, definitely. Things like communication skills kept coming up, also medication safety, infection control, wound care. Those seem to be consistent needs across different programs.
Okay, so if the current methods aren't proven, what's next? Did they talk about simulations?
They did. It's a natural thought, right? We use simulation labs all the time in medical training for ORs, inpatient units, clinics.
Makes sense. You can mimic real situations in a safe space.
Exactly. And they highlighted the idea of adapting this for home-like settings, building simulation environments that feel like a patient's home.
Has anyone actually done that?
Yes, they discussed a study from London. They set up simulations for physicians who were rotating through their hospital-at-home service.
And what did that involve?
It was pretty comprehensive. Practical skills, sure, like IVs and catheters, but also high-fidelity scenarios, think mannequins simulating a patient getting sicker. And a big focus on communication.
Communication, like it.
Like the really tough conversations, advanced care planning, end-of-life discussions, shared decision-making with patients and families in that home setting.
That sounds incredibly valuable. What were the results?
Promising. The physicians reported feeling more confident after the simulations, especially, interestingly, in those communication skills.
Ah, so the soft skills really benefited.
Seems like it. Now, they were careful to point out the confidence intervals overlapped, so statistically it wasn't a slam dunk difference. But it was the first study they found specifically looking at simulation for hospital-at-home training, and it definitely suggested a benefit.
So simulation looks promising, but the overall message on training is we need more research.
Pretty much. We need studies that actually compare different methods and measure outcomes to figure out what's truly effective.
Okay, let's shift gears. Scaling up. Everyone wants hospital-at-home to grow, but actually making that happen seems tough.
It is. There's immense pressure to expand, show value, handle more patients. But going from a small pilot to, a large-scale operation has real challenges. The conference session brought up 2 key frameworks to help with this: Agile and human-centered design.
Agile, like in software development.
Exactly like that. The idea is applying those principles: iterative development, flexibility, responding to change, to implementing and scaling healthcare programs. There's literature emerging on this just in the past year or so.
How does that help in healthcare practically?
Well, it gives you a structured way to guide teams through the process. Change management is huge in healthcare, right? Agile provides steps, helps get buy-in, lets you adapt as you go.
Any examples?
Yeah, they mentioned a home hospital program that used Agile to decentralize parts of their admission process. Made it easier and faster to get patients enrolled by giving frontline teams more autonomy within a clear structure.
Interesting. And the other one? Human-centered design.
HCD. This one really puts the focus squarely on the experience of the end users. So, the patients, their families, and the staff delivering the care.
Sounds obvious, but maybe not always practiced.
You You could say that. They highlighted an article specifically using HCD principles for hospital at home, which they noted was pretty novel in the published research.
So how does HCD work in this context?
It's typically a phased approach. First, you really dig deep to understand the user's needs, pain points, perspectives. That's the empathize and define stage. Then you brainstorm and prototype solutions, ideate and prototype. And finally, you test those prototypes with actual users, like real patients.
So lots of feedback loops.
Exactly. It helps you map out the entire scaling process, design workflows that actually work for people, anticipate problems.
And using Agile and HCD together.
That seemed to be the key takeaway. Combining Agile's structured flexibility with HCD's deep user focus gives you a powerful toolkit for planning and implementing growth in hospital at home.
Okay, moving on. Cardiologists. This one might raise some eyebrows. The speakers mentioned some historical skepticism about hospital at home, especially for heart failure patients.
That's definitely been true. Cardiologists are understandably focused on established guidelines, goal-directed medical therapy, often delivered with the intensive monitoring capabilities of a traditional hospital. Bringing that level of care home, it wasn't an easy sell initially.
Right, the guidelines were built around the hospital setting.
Precisely. So aligning hospital at home practices with those guidelines was a challenge.
But something's changed.
Big news here. Hospital at home is now formally included in the American College of Cardiology's consensus decision pathway for heart failure.
Wow, okay, that sounds significant.
Uh-huh.
What exactly is a consensus decision pathway? Is that like a guideline?
Not quite, and that's an important distinction they made. A consensus statement, or pathway, is based more on expert opinion and agreement, especially when the hard evidence is still developing or limited. A full guideline requires a much higher level of rigorous, systematic evidence review.
So it's a step in that direction. Acknowledgement from the experts.
Exactly. It's a starting point, but a very important one. It signals a shift in thinking. They even showed a figure from the pathway where hospital at home is listed as an option right at the initial triage stage for heart failure patients.
That is a change. Did they give an example?
Yeah, a hypothetical but realistic case. 70-year-old with heart failure, other health issues, shows up in the ER. No inpatient beds available. Cardiologist wants continuous IV diuretics, the standard inpatient treatment.
A common scenario, unfortunately.
Right. And keeping that patient boarding in the ER for hours or days has no negative consequences. The point was that cardiologists are starting to see hospital at home as a viable alternative in these situations.
Where does it fit in the spectrum of care then?
Kind of positioned between an outpatient IV therapy clinic and a full traditional inpatient admission for worsening heart failure. It offers more support than just outpatient visits, but in the patient's home.
And is there evidence backing this up for heart failure specifically?
The consensus statement itself actually referenced 4 randomized controlled trials looking at hospital at home for heart failure. And it acknowledged a 2020 systematic review that included 6 studies, generally showing favorable outcomes.
So the evidence is building.
It is. And maybe even more compelling were some direct quotes they shared from cardiologists involved in creating the consensus statement.
Oh, what did they say?
Things like acknowledging the potential for hospital at home to improve care, provide seamless transitions, even transform heart failure management, calling it potentially a core component of comprehensive care.
That's a huge shift from historical skepticism.
Absolutely. It marks real progress in cardiology's engagement with this model.
Okay, let's talk about managing some other specific clinical issues at home. Electrolytes and dialysis. As programs take on sicker patients, these must come up more often, right?
Definitely. Patients with multiple chronic conditions like kidney disease or cancer or those on diuretics are more prone to electrolyte disturbances.
Did the conference present data on this?
They did. They cited a retrospective review from a large program in Israel, Sheba Beyond Hospital, found that over half, 56% of their hospital-at-home patients had an electrolyte disturbance.
Oh, wow, that's high. What kinds?
Mostly hyponatremia, low sodium, and hyperkalemia, high potassium, and it was often associated with those underlying conditions: chronic kidney disease, malignancy, and diuretic use.
Did the study say how they treated these at home? IVs, pills?
It didn't detail the specific treatments, unfortunately, whether it was oral or IV repletion, but it did confirm that care was managed by remote physicians with in-home nursing visits, and patients had access to tools like self-administered EKGs and daily lab draws, so complex management was happening.
Okay, so it's doable. What about dialysis? That seems like a major logistical challenge for home-based care.
Historically, yes. Many programs excluded patients needing hemodialysis because of the need for specialized equipment and frequent treatments, usually in a center.
But is that changing too?
There's some innovative thinking happening. They presented a study from Oregon Health Sciences University looking at a specific scenario.
Which was?
Patients who needed inpatient-level care for other reasons, but also needed ongoing hemodialysis, and were facing delays getting outpatient dialysis slots. OHSU admitted them to hospital at home for their acute medical issue, but transported them to an inpatient dialysis unit for their scheduled treatments. They called it round-trip dialysis.
Huh. So hospital at home for everything except the dialysis procedure itself.
Exactly. They managed 37 cases this way. And the benefits were significant. They calculated over 1,000 bed days saved.
1,000? That's substantial.
It really is. They shared a powerful example. A young woman who developed acute kidney injury during pregnancy needed new dialysis, but could recover at home with her newborn just going to the hospital for the dialysis treatment itself.
That's a great outcome. So it's a proof of concept.
Definitely.
Yep.
Especially relevant where dialysis capacity is strained. They did note some logistical hurdles like the dialysis unit not having a proper waiting area for these patients arriving from home.
Sure. Details to iron out.
Right. But it opens the door to thinking about potentially including stable, long-term dialysis patients in a hospital at home, or even admitting patients needing new dialysis directly from the ER to this model, provided the transport and treatment logistics work.
Very interesting possibilities.
Yeah.
But even if the clinical capabilities are there, you still need patients to say yes. What about improving patient acceptance?
Yes. The patient refusal challenge. It's a real thing. Eligible patients sometimes decline hospital at home care.
Why is that? Is it related to how sick they are or demographics?
Interestingly, research suggests it's less about specific medical or socio-demographic factors and more about general attitudes and feelings towards home. Comfort, convenience, but also perceptions of safety.
So some people just feel safer in a hospital, even if hospital at home is clinically appropriate.
That seems to be part of it. Studies looking at reasons for acceptance often hear things like comfort of home, being with family, it feels safe. Reasons for refusal include preferring hospital care, worries about unmet needs at home, or sometimes just no specific reason given.
So how do you address those feelings and perceptions?
Well, one innovative approach came from Atrium Health in North Carolina. They were seeing low participation rates and developed a decision support app to help patients make the choice.
An app for deciding on hospital at home.
Yeah. They focused initially on community-acquired pneumonia patients, and they used that human-centered design approach we talked about earlier.
Meaning they talk to users.
Extensively. Qualitative interviews with patients who had experienced hospital at home, caregivers, providers, really trying to understand the decision-making process and the barriers.
What barriers did they find for using an app like this?
They grouped them into 4-packs. Things like integrating the app smoothly with the hospital's electronic records, making sure it fits the clinical workflow without burdening doctors, ensuring it aligns with clinical judgment, and critically addressing digital literacy issues among patients.
All sounds very practical.
Yeah.
And what do they aim for in the app itself? What makes it work?
Good functionality, obviously. Streamlining the admission process, maybe auto-populating patient data, making it easy to navigate, providing tech support.
What kinds of features did the actual app have?
It sounded quite comprehensive. Simple language, visuals, even videos explaining hospital at home, side-by-side comparisons with traditional hospital care, FAQs, checkboxes for patients to indicate preferences.
Visuals.
Yeah, like pictographs to represent illness severity, which can be easier to grasp than just numbers or text. It could also capture data about the home environment, automatically pull info from the EHR, and even connect patients to financial support staff if needed.
That sounds really well thought out. Did they test it?
This particular study was about the development and the features. They acknowledged limitations, single center, small sample, only English speakers. The patient personas weren't fully developed yet, but the approach and the set of features were the key takeaways.
So next steps would be usability testing and seeing if it actually improves acceptance rates.
Exactly. Outcome studies are needed. But even if the specific app isn't the final answer everywhere, it provides a really valuable blueprint of things to consider when trying to help patients make this choice.
Makes sense. Okay, last big topic. Medications and pharmacy support. This seems absolutely critical for safety and effectiveness at home.
Hugely critical. Giving IV meds at home is just different than in the hospital. Fewer immediate resources if something goes wrong, different logistics.
What are the key considerations there?
They referenced a review paper focused on IV antibiotics in hospital at home. It pulled together pharmacy knowledge and made some key recommendations.
Such as?
Things like trying to simplify dosing schedules, maybe continuous infusions instead of multiple daily doses, which is easier for patients and nurses. Avoiding old-school gravity flow devices for IVs. Pumps are safer and more reliable.
Okay.
Ensuring timely medication delivery is crucial. Maybe having a small stock of common meds, an in-home formulary,
Yep.
and exploring barcoding for medication administration in the home.
Barcoding at home, like in the hospital.
Yeah, the idea is it could reduce errors, just like in the hospital, and give the central pharmacy better visibility into what's being given when.
And what about the pharmacists themselves? What's their role?
Indispensable, basically. They highlighted a study from British Columbia that specifically tracked what hospital-at-home pharmacists do day to day, used a mix of observation and surveys over 12 months.
And what do they do?
A lot. They were involved in team rounds almost all the time, 96%. Did admission medication reconciliation nearly always, 96%. And discharge reconciliation most of the time, 80%.
So really involved in managing the med list.
Deeply involved. Plus, patient education in 70% of cases, creating medication calendars for patients about a quarter of the time. And here's a big one. They identified and resolved an average of 3 drug therapy problems per patient per day.
3 problems per day. Wow, what kinds of problems?
Often related to cardiovascular meds, antibiotics, and antithrombotics, blood thinners. Things like wrong doses, interactions, meds needing to be stopped or started, or even just retiming medications for better effect or convenience at home.
That really drives home the value. They're actively catching and fixing potential errors.
Absolutely. It underscores how vital that dedicated pharmacy expertise is for safety and optimizing treatment within the hospital-at-home model.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. Quite a deep dive into that conference session.
Yeah, lots of ground covered. We saw simulation emerging as a promising tool for training, though more research is definitely needed there.
Right, and the importance of using structured approaches like Agile combined with that user focus of human-centered design if programs really want to scale effectively.
Definitely. Then the big news about cardiology formally, including hospital at home in their heart failure consensus pathway, that's a major step.
And the practical insights into managing more complex issues like electrolyte balances and finding creative solutions like round-trip dialysis.
And the work being done on patient acceptance, developing tools like that decision support app to help patients feel comfortable choosing hospital at home.
Can't forget the pharmacy piece, optimizing IV administration, and the clear daily value pharmacists bring in catching and resolving medication issues.
Exactly. And it's worth noting, they mentioned the recent launch of the Journal of Advanced Home Medicine.
A dedicated journal for this field.
Yeah, which should really help accelerate knowledge sharing and research dissemination. And interestingly, all these topics we discussed, they map pretty closely to a research agenda for hospital at home that was published previously. So the field is actively working on its known priorities.
It's good to hear. It feels like there's real momentum.
There definitely is. Which brings us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider.
Okay.
With all these advancements, the improving training, the scaling strategies, the growing clinical capabilities, the increasing acceptance from specialties like cardiology, the focus on patient choice and safety, what do you think acute healthcare will look like in, say, the next 5 or 10 years? How might hospital at home really redefine where and how patients get optimal care when they're acutely ill? It's worth reflecting on what that means for patients, for providers, and, well, for the entire healthcare system